Hello and welcome to Empire of Wargames. Today we are going to take an in-depth look at the Dark Angels Combat Patrol box. We will go over each unit individually, talk about loadouts, stratagems and tactics. We will also analyze how this box plays at 500 points or 25 power level, and we will upgrade this box to 750 points. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Alright, let's go. As always, we will start with the cost breakdown before going over all the units individually. There's a lot to take in here, so strap in. You are saving between 22 and 28% without the Dark Angels upgrade sprue, and between 39 and 48% with the upgrade sprues. As always, if you buy this box as a non-Dark Angels player and you don't plan on selling them or using some of the upgrades on the sprue, you should really consider if you absolutely need every unit in the box. Otherwise, it's not that worth it, especially if you don't really need a expensive unit in the box like the Redemptor Dreadnought. So let me give you another example. A lot of people have Indomitors, or even multiple times, and there's a chaplain in there, so you don't really need it from this particular box. If you remove the chaplain from the box, you're saving around 5% without the upgrade sprues, so it's technically still worth it, but only if you really want the 5 Intercessors, a Redemptor Dreadnought, and the Inceptors in that specific combination and number, because there are only 5 Intercessors in here, not 10. If you have enough Intercessors as well as the chaplain from Indomitors, you are better off buying separately. Value-wise, this box is nothing impressive. Compared to the top dog, the Blood Angels Combat Patrol box, this one is way worse. We are talking about 22% savings in the Dark Angels box without the sprues, against 35% in the Blood Angels box without the sprues. So the disparity is quite massive. I will directly compare all the Space Marine Combat Patrols in an upcoming video, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that video. Alright, enough talk about values and money. Let's start talking about this box in a general sense before going into the units in specific. Does this box feel Dark Angels? Well, yes, in the sense that Green Wing, quote unquote, is your basic bulk of units that every Dark Angels player will have use for and need at some point. But also no, because the most iconic units are not included. I'm talking about Deathwing and Ravenwing here. The reason why it's obvious that they didn't include them is because Terminators are not Primaris, and so they never had a chance of being included. And meanwhile, Ravenwing would be Outriders, because that's the only Primaris variant you can take, and Outriders are already cheaply available in the Elite Edition of the current starter set, so including them would make the value of the box actually plummet. I'm glad they didn't include them here, because you can literally just buy them off of eBay or share a box with someone. Tech Bikes and Land Speeders are not Primaris either, and Storm Speeders are way too new for them to be included in the box, so they didn't really have a chance and another choice but to include a lot of Greenwing here, with the option of the Redemptor Dreadnought obviously also being able to get the Inner Circle keyword for 15 points, so you could technically make it a Deathwing Dreadnought, but it is what it is. While we are talking about the Dark Angels theme here, generally there is enough potential plasma in this box, which is somewhat of a trademark for Dark Angels. Hellblasters seem to be missing, but these lads are just way too expensive for a Combat Patrol box and wouldn't be a good fit. The box is decent when it comes to, fitting the Dark Angel theme, considering how badly they failed with theming the boxes for Blood Angels and Space Wolves. Next up, before going in depth, let's talk about the army-wide rules for Dark Angels. First up, and the main thing about the Dark Angels, is Grim Resolve, which basically grants you a +1 to hit if you didn't move the turn before. Units that have piled in or consolidated still get the Grim Resolve bonus, so keep that in mind. This applies to melee as well as ranged. You also pass combat attrition tests automatically, which is nice, but nothing to write home about. Then we have Speed of the Raven. It is active during the Devastator Doctrine and benefits the Raven Wing units in your army, allowing them to move an additional 3 inches, and it allows them to shoot and advance. Weapons shot this way are considered as assault weapons, so you basically advanced and you get -1 to hit. Fire Discipline is active during the Tactical Doctrine and allows your non-Deathwing infantry units to shoot in melee. You'll only be hitting on 5s though. Remember that Grim Resolve still triggers, so you might actually be hitting on 4s instead of 5s, which makes units like Eradicators hilarious even in melee. Last but not least, there is Impeccable, and is active during the Assault Doctrine, and applies to all Deathwing infantry and Dreadnoughts. It grants a reroll on wound rolls against characters with 8+ wounds. A very specific ability, but still not to be underestimated against Tyranids or Greater Demons. Jink and Inner Circle are not exactly army-wide, so not all your units are, benefiting from those rules, but Jink gives your Ravenwing units a 4+ invulnerable save if they advance, and a 5+ invulnerable save if they remain stationary. Meanwhile, Inner Circle makes units fearless and gives them permanent transhuman physiology, which is honestly insane. So the general gist here and the takeaway is that the Dark Angels rulebook and the rules in general want you to take and mix and match a lot of the different wings together and make the most out of those quote-unquote super doctrines for each of those 3 different wings. Alright, now that we have the rules down and know what the Dark Angels can do in a general sense, let's go over the units one by one and see what we can do with them. We'll start with the HQ choice of the box, which is the Primaris Chaplain. Honestly, I would argue you could play him as any Chaplain. I'm especially eyeing the Interrogator Chaplain. Okay, wait. I need to explain a little something about this box before continuing. This box is 495 points or 26 power level base. So just including the units is that much. You have 5 points left and that's barely enough to squeeze your pinky finger in there. So anyway, this barely allows for upgrades, so I'll offer one build for the Chaplain that is more limited to the constraints of a 500 point list, and the other one doesn't have any limits at all and should be included in, I don't know, 1000 point games or 2000 point games. Alright, let's start with the cheap Primaris Chaplain variant. I don't think Brilliant Strategist needs any explanation. It's just an amazing warlord trait. It's A+, and you'll want to take it almost always. There is no real reason not to take it. I'm also personally a fan of the Litany of Faith because I am rather defensive myself. I prefer defensive tactics. So if you want to go the offensive approach, go with Catechism of Fire. As for the relics, I went with the safe call and gave the Chaplain a very strong ranged option, which still has its qualities in melee. I feel like playing this variant of the Chaplain a little more safe is definitely the play here. The idea is simple. This is a support Chaplain with some offensive potential due to the relic. I feel like it offers a nice mix of offensive and supportive potential. And the 18 inches of the Purgatoros or Purgaratos, whatever, are going to be more than enough on a combat patrol size board. Don't pick the relic on a strike force size table, just to make that clear, because 18 inches and all in all it's not great on a bigger size board. I would usually go for the Cup of Retribution here, but I don't think a Power Sword on the Sergeant or a Dreadnought is enough to warrant a relic, for this box in particular. The more expensive variant is basically a Master of Sanctity with both Litany of Fate and Catechism of Fire. It's still very much a supporting character. As for the relic, it really depends on the situation and the points you're playing. The all-rounders here are Shroud of Heroes, Armor Indomitus, or the Cup of Retribution, if you have melee units to support this. In bigger games, 1000 points and up, and when playing a support Chaplain, the Cup of Retribution will probably be the best choice, especially with good melee units like Deathwing Knights, for example. So as I mentioned before, I think most players will be fine with you playing the Primaris Chaplain as an Interrogator Chaplain. So what you see on the screen right now is a build for the Interrogator Chaplain to just show his raw power for a 85 or 125 point model, I think. It's just insane. He can go up to 9 attacks, I think 10 with psychic support. So yeah, if you want a melee based Chaplain and not a more, support based Chaplain, this is 100% the way to go. Great, with the Chaplain out of the way, we have the Intercessors. We have 5 of them, so not a whole lot of objectives secured. As I already mentioned, we are assuming you're playing this box as Dark Angels, but honestly, if you are not selling the upgrade spruce, you might as well make use of the Power Sword on the upgrade spruce for the Dark Angels. So, the only meaningful decision we have in this box when playing combat patrol size games is, do we want the Intercessor Sergeant to have a Power Sword, or do we give the Intercessor Squad a grenade launcher, or do we upgrade the Redemptor Dreadnought with an Icarus rocket pod or a Onslaught Gatling cannon instead of the Heavy Flamer? All of these options cost 5 points, so let me make this easy. The best option to go with is obviously the power sword for the Intercessors. The most efficient choice, especially for combat patrol, is upgrading your toughness 7 13 wound unit that can't be killed unless your opponent is prepared for you to bring a vehicle. So the cool choice and the visually stimulating choice is the Sergeant with the power sword. The optimal choice, in my opinion, is going with the Onslaught Gatling cannon for your Redemptor Dreadnought. Anyway, the Intercessors are your only objective secured unit, as I already mentioned, and you only have 5 of them. If they die and your opponent has a lot of troops left with OBSEC, you're probably going to lose despite having a huge toughness 7 behemoth on the table. The Intercessors are clearly your weak point in this list. That is why I wouldn't give them the power sword. You don't want them anywhere near danger, and that means no melee combat for those guys. You want them to sit on an objective and be behind cover while shooting. For bigger games, you can 100% give the Sergeant a power sword, making the whole squad extremely scary in melee. When the tactical doctrine is active and you are able to shoot in melee, this is going to be a lot of damage. So personally, if you are not a tournament player, just stick the power sword on the Sergeant and make clear before the game if he has it equipped or not. Problem sorted. If you play Intercessors and tournament lists and want your Sergeant to have a weapon, you would go with the Power Fist anyway. The stratagems you are going to want to use on these guys, or to at least keep in mind here, are the usual. Transhuman Physiology out of the regular book, and Tactical Appraisal out of the Dark Angel supplement. Next up we have the Inceptors. Even though Dark Angels are somewhat about plasma, these curiously were not equipped with their plasma exterminators on the box art. The reason for that is that they would have been too expensive for a 500 points game. The plasma variant is generally still amazing, and you should equip them with them regardless, unless, you know, you play what you see is what you get, or you play in tournaments. If you are mainly a combat patrol player or want to keep these boxes as they are, so you can play with friends and have armies ready to give them and to just play with, give them the Bolter variant so they fit in the 500 point list. The Plasma variant is so good because weapons from the Dark Age makes a full squad of Plasma Inceptors extremely scary. Some quick maths for the stratagem and a full squad of Inceptors. So keep in mind, these are 6 Inceptors and not 3. As you can see, these guys are no joke and make short work of whatever you put in front of them with the Plasma Exterminators. The Assault Bolters are strength 5, AP -1, damage 1, and are definitely more for troops and light infantry than vehicles. As long as you know what to target with them, they are extremely potent as well. Inceptors in general are a great unit at the moment. Sadly, they're in the fast attack slot, which will be occupied with a lot of Raven Wing for a lot of Dark Angels players. But if you buy this box for any other chapter that is not Imperial Fists, you're going to want to slap the Plasma Exterminators on them. For Imperial Fist, you obviously want the Assault Bolters. Great unit all around and very solid box so far. Oh, and keep stratagems like Intraceable in mind for these guys. It's very important to have that available. Lastly, there is the Redemptor Dreadnought. This unit is 100% a quote-unquote dead guy unit for combat patrol games, especially if your opponent is not prepared. This unit is not quite a knight, of course, but still dealing with this thing without preparation is nigh impossible. Gladly, this box has other glaring weaknesses, like only 5 objective secured models, which makes the inclusion of this somewhat okay. The Redemptor Dreadnought is a core unit, which makes it a very strong pick for Space Marines as it stands. The weapons it can be equipped with are amazing, and it's potent in both melee and ranged. There is really no downside here. Even its special ability, Duty Eternal, is amazing and makes it even beefier than it already is. So as I said before, my pick for the 500 points list here would be to give the Redemptor an Onslaught Gatling Cannon instead of the Flamer. The Icarus Rocket Pod is not bad either, but due to the nature of combat patrol games, I would value horde killing weapons higher than high strength, low shot weapons. As for the main weapon, that's totally up to you. Due to my logic before, the Heavy Onslaught Gatling would be the better choice, but Dark Angels support the Plasma variant via stratagems. The choice here is really yours. For Dark Angels, I go with the Macro Plasma Incinerator, while going with the Heavy Onslaught for other chapters. There's no definitive right or wrong here. Yes, Dark Angels support plasma weapons via stratagems, but you have to consider if you really want to spend 2 CP on a single unit with a single plasma weapon. It all comes down to the situation at hand and personal preference. You could give the Redemptor Dreadnought the Inner Circle keyword for 15 additional points, And I honestly don't see the point in doing this with your Redemptor Dreadnought. If you have multiple, it could be helpful for you to have, you know, a Deathwing Redemptor Dreadnought to gain the bonus of wounding big enemies in assault phase. But as it stands, we don't have the points for a 500 point list. And yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. All right, so let's talk combat patrol tactics really quickly. As I mentioned in the individual unit analysis, you want to hide your only OBSEC unit, which are your Intercessors, on an objective behind cover if at all possible, while letting your other units, like the Redemptor Dreadnought and the Inceptors, do all the heavy lifting and killing. You can also make the choice here if you want your Chaplain to be a more buff and supportive unit, or if you want a more close combat and damage heavy unit. If you prefer to have another unit that is good in melee next to your Redemptor, you could always play your Primaris Chaplain as an Interrogator Chaplain, as I mentioned before. And I would recommend this particular build. It wounds infantries and bikers on 2s. It gets +1 to wound against anything else. It debuffs morale for your enemies, hit roll buffs for friendly chapter units nearby, and it has 3 attacks at strength 6, AP -2, damage 3, and 5 attacks at strength 7, AP -1 and damage 3. So with psychic support, there would be more attacks and even higher damage. Okay, just to reiterate and have everything at the same place. If you play the support-based Chaplain, you will want him to be next to the Redemptor Dreadnought or your Intercessors to buff them and buff the units, because both of the units I mentioned, the Redemptor Dreadnought and Intercessors, are core units. If you play the Interrogator Chaplain, you will want him next to your Redemptor Dreadnought at all times, because that's your melee-based blob, basically, out of 2 units. Meanwhile, you will use your Intercessors to guard an objective at all times, possibly the objective closest to your deployment zone. And meanwhile, you will use the Inceptors to fly around and grab the one or other objective that is not protected by your enemy's units. And that's basically all there is when it comes to tactics for this unit for 500 point games. Great, so next up we have the 750 point upgrades. If you want to stay full Primaris for whatever reason that might be, I would recommend going for Outriders, because the new Raven Wing rules are really good. Plus, having a fast and flexible unit in your list can help counteract weird deployment and allow you to be more reactive. Especially combined with the Inceptors, you will have a lot of movement on your board, which is a very positive thing to have. As for the rest of your points, you could probably go with Blackguard Veterans. I keep coming back to these guys all the time and in almost every Combat Patrol analysis, but these guys are just insane for their points cost, and they have the inner circle keyword for free. Free permanent transhuman physiology and no moral problems ever again. If you don't care for Primaris at all though, you could upgrade for not that much money. Going for a Deathwing Terminator squad is never a bad idea, especially with the new rules. They are scary and nigh unkillable. Not with this particular setup, but once you have the points to buy a Deathwing Apothecary next to your Deathwing squad, it's going to get more and more difficult to kill them. So for the points, for a 750 point list, a squad of Deathwing Terminators is a very good pickup. Alright, the conclusion is straightforward. This Combat Patrol box is pretty good out of the box and can be easily upgraded. The list for 500 point games is a little questionable, but somewhat effective. I played it in 3 games, so I had my fair share of Combat Patrol games. Your upgrade paths as a Dark Angel player are numerous, and no matter if you want to go for Deathwing, Ravenwing, or if you want to stay Primaris only, the options are, yeah, as I said, unlimited, nigh unlimited. The savings are not that great, especially, you know, compared to the Blood Angels box, but that's really the only downside this Combat Patrol has. Especially if you don't know what to do with the upgrade spruce, it's going to get even worse. So it's a good box all in all. One of the better Combat Patrol box out at the moment with suboptimal savings. Alright, that's the video. So as I said, consider subscribing and leaving a thumbs up. It helps a ton. If you have any feedback or questions, I'd be happy to chat in the comments below. And yeah, check out all the links in the description as well. Thank you for watching, and I see you in the next video. Bye bye.